Hey guys, it's Crazy Airborne. I'm gonna just go through a basic tutorial, beginner tutorial of Sony Vegas. I'm using Pro 11, but the previous versions, 9, 10, etc., should be pretty close to this. It might have a little bit of a different look, but all the basic stuff is the same. So the first thing, you open it up, it probably will look something like this. The first thing to do is to get rid of all this extra junk on the screen. So basically, we don't need this sound master thing. We can just go up to this X and close it. We do want to leave the preview screen up. We can delete this as the trimmer screen. We don't need that up. And then this is the Explorer. I don't ever use it. I only use Project Media, Transitions, Video Effects, Media Generator. So I'm just going to close this by going up to the X, closing that. Another way to do it is just to go and uncheck everything you don't need, just leaving Video Preview, Project Media, Transitions, Video Effects, Media Generator. So now we're good like this. Also, you want to make sure you go to File, Properties, and make sure that you have your template set up correctly. So we can go, I suggest using either HD 720 60p, that would be a HD 720p video, or a full HD video, which would be 1080p right here, 1920 by 1080 at 29 frames per second. So I personally am just going to use the 1080, and I'm not going to touch anything else. Everything else should be pretty standard. So now we have our layout, and this is how it looks. It's such a great program. Let's just get right into it. Let's say you have a clip when you want to import it in. First thing to do is to go to Import Media. That's right there. I just clicked it. Now browse for the media clip you want to use. I'm just going to use this random Battlefield image, video I should say. So it put it in the project bin, or whatever you want to call this. So now we can just click it and drag it down onto the timeline down here, and it created tracks. The top one is the video track, the bottom one is the audio track. And as I click around, it moves this cursor around. This cursor is just kind of like where your video is in the time, and this shows what you're doing on the screen. So let's just edit this down a little bit. Let's find a cool spot. The first thing to do that you're probably going to do is you're going to end up editing out the pieces you don't want, and I'm just going to edit it down so that it's just that helicopter flying by, because that's really cool. So the first thing to learn is how to split. Let's split the file up, and we do that by hitting S. If we hit S right in the spot that we wanted, so I just moved the cursor by clicking and dragging it, and I want it right before the helicopter comes out, so I'm going to move it right there, and then I'm just going to hit S on the keyboard, and that splits the file. And if I click the part I don't want, I can just delete it. Clicked it and then hit delete on the keyboard. Now I'm just going to click and drag this over, and let's see, I want to split it after the helicopter goes by like that, so I'm going to split it right about there. I think there's another helicopter in here. I think I saw that. There's one right there, so I'm actually going to keep that helicopter in two, so I'm going to split this one, and the helicopter goes by, and I'm going to split it again right there. So I'm going to delete that middle clip and delete the end clip. So now I have two clips, and that's great. So we learned how to split by hitting S. Another thing we can learn here is grouping and ungrouping. Right now, these two, video and audio, are grouped, and that means when you move one, they're together, which is good because they're keeping the audio with the clip. This audio is actually not game audio, it's just microphone audio, and I don't want it in my clip, so I'm going to ungroup and delete the audio. So the first thing I can do is just click either or and click U. Now U ungroups them, so look, they are now separate entities. I can click the one I want to delete and hit the delete button. The same on this. I'm actually going to delete the audio, so well, we'll leave it for now, but ungroup. Okay, so we have our two clips. Let's say, oh no, actually I want that back, so I can just drag it back, and it you can see it kind of snaps into place, which is really handy. And then I can shift and click the other one so they're both selected, and I can hit G to group them back up, so now they're grouped back together again. So that's grouping and ungrouping, a very handy thing to know. And I'm going to ungroup and delete that audio again. And you can group two video files together, G. Now they're connected. And ungroup them. Alright. We can also put, let's say you have a third clip. I'm going to go to a media generator. Now there's lots of different things. I just clicked media generator here. We can go to, let's put in a random one. A blue movie border. That sounds cool. So I'm going to just click it, and I'm going to drag it onto the file that I want it on. And you can change the gradient, you can change all the properties, color and everything. Blue's cool, whatever. Insert a video track. I just right clicked over there to insert a video track. If I pull it up on top, there we go. So now it puts a border around my video. That's cool, right? And we can click and we can drag it out to extend it across the whole thing. So now there's a border across the whole video. And I'm going to put these two together, and I can click and drag this down, so now there's a border around the whole video. I wanted to show you a fade. Let's show you a fade. You can fade. Now you can scroll up with your mouse, and it zooms into your project, so you can kind of have a more detailed grasp of where exactly you are in your project. You can zoom out and you could see your full project if it was really long or whatever. That's what I'm doing there. So let's just do a little fade. If I put my mouse over to this corner of the screen here, it pulls up this little icon that is the fade icon, and I can click and drag in, and now it'll fade in. And we can do the same with your border so it doesn't just look weird. Now if I hit play, look at that, it fades in. See that? Fade in. I'm using these buttons down here. This is just normal, pretty self-explanatory buttons. You have play, pause, stop, go to the start, go to the end, previous frame, next frame. So it fades in. We can also do a transition. Let's say, even though you don't really need a transition because these two are so similar here, let's say you wanted to add a transition to those two clips. We can go to the Transitions tab and do let's do something crazy. 9 diamonds in yellow border. Let's do that. So I can just click and drag it in between those two clips, and I can change colors and everything. This is just an example. So now it's transitioning there, and if the two clips were very different, you'd obviously see it. Actually, let's just do that real fast. I'm gonna insert a media generated solid color so you can see it transition. So I just went to media generated solid color. This is good to add like a black on the background if you want to just have a title screen that's black or magenta or whatever color. You can just do this generated media thing. Yes, solid color. It's way too long, so I'm just going to click and drag it down to size. And then I'm going to grab that, go back to transitions and grab that one that I liked and pull it onto right there. So now we have this transition to black and back out. I'm not going to show you another type of transition here you can do. It's a lot easier. I like the effect. It's more subtle. You can just click a clip and push it on. Oh, it actually already has. Let's take out that transition. Delete that transition. All I did there was I'll show you. I clicked the transition itself, clicked the symbol, and you can delete any effect or transition by clicking this green remove selected plugin button. So I clicked it anyways. A transition that's really subtle is a fade transition, and all you do is drag a file on top of another file, and it does a fade from one to the other. And since it's black, it looks like a regular fade, but yeah, there's a transition to black, and then a fade transition back out. And it wasn't a very long transition because I didn't make it very long, but I can make it longer, and it won't be so fast. So there you go. There's transitions. Keeping this basic, we can also do text. Let's do text. So let's pull this out so the border's the whole time, and let's throw some text in here. I'm actually gonna, the easiest way I found to do it is just create another video track so it's on the top, and let's go to, make sure we're clicked in that track, and go to insert text media, and you can see it, put it right over here. And let's name this Battlefield BF3. That's cool, right? And let's also highlight it and change the font to something random. Stencil. That looks more Battlefield-ish. We can change the color to red, color to green. It's bright. And the size actually doesn't matter in Sony Vegas 11, because you can, while this is open, go over to your video preview screen and you can actually drag it bigger. You can actually move it this way too. Let's just do it like that. It's perfect. There, so now there's text on top of the thing, and you can make the text fade in and fade out so it's not so abrupt. And you see all I did was click in the corner, so now the text will fade in and fade out with some random transitions in there. Keyframes. Real quick, we'll touch on keyframes just so we cover it, but it's a more advanced thing. We'll go event pan and crop and keyframes in the same deal. Let's say this text. It's a good way to teach you keyframes. I just clicked, don't want to go too fast here, this button right here, event pan and crop, and then I am scrolling out to see the whole screen a little bit better. Now if I click this corner and drag out, it's actually making the Battlefield 3 thing smaller. And this is how you animate things on your screen, and that's what keyframes do. Down here you have your timeline for this clip, and this is how long, the length of time that the text is on the screen. And by having the cursor in the middle right where it was, we created a keyframe there when we started moving this around. Now if we decide to, if it's not working quite like this, make sure you have this set to move freely, so click until it's moved freely, click that to be unchecked, and make sure this says locked aspect ratio. And also you want to make sure that sync cursor is clicked so that it's syncing your cursor in this project to your cursor in your video preview. So I like to do that so I can actually see the video preview changing. So what we're doing is we're setting up a keyframe which is basically recording the spot where the change in what you did with your panning and cropping. So right here, I'm just going to right click and hit restore, so now it's back to normal. So now we can actually delete that keyframe. Ooh, there's a couple keyframes there. Alright, so we'll go to the very beginning. Very beginning, we're fading in. You can see it over in the video preview. Now, let's say we want, actually in the beginning, let's say we want the Battlefield 3 word to be on the left. So since we'll make sure the cursor's in the very beginning of the text, we'll move this to the left, and it's going to go across the screen. So let's go to the end of the clip and move it to the right. So it created a keyframe at the end with the word on the right. So now it is automatically going to animate itself, and that's what a keyframe does. It creates an animation or a movement or whatever. See that on the video screen? So now it's really cool because it animated it across, and that's a keyframe. Panning and cropping allows you to again move stuff around on the screen, zoom in on things, make things bigger, like we could do it like this. So now it's going to, in the center, it's going to get bigger, and we moved that one, didn't we? Go back to that one, move this left. So now it should get bigger and get smaller, because as you can see, the animation from left to right was still there, and in the very center keyframe we made it big. So that's pan crop. You can also rotate, so we could do this. Actually, if we go all the way upside down, it'll completely spin. Yeah, look at that. So we just created this really cool effect with pan, crop, and keyframes. And it's going to go pretty fast. Oh, it goes all crazy. But this is just basics. And I think the last step is to render it. So just to make that effect a little bit better, we'll stretch that out. So we'll just watch it in the preview screen real quick. So we have our helicopter going by, we have our word coming in, it's spinning all around all crazy, and then it's transitioning and fade transitioning, and it's done. Alright. Now we can render. What I like to do with video games, one tip real quick is to make sure you have all the video highlighted. So we'll just click on one end, since there's a few clips here, and I'll click on the other. I'll shift and click the other end so they're all selected, and I'll right click and go to switches and go to disable resample, because for some reason it makes video game footage blurry if you don't disable resample. So you got to learn to do that every single time. Alright, now we're going to render. So let's go. I just left clicked and dragged all the way across to select my area, and I'm going to go to File, Render As, and I like to render it as, and I suggest doing the same, Internet HD or Internet HD 720. If you are recording in HD, then you can render in HD. If you record at a lower resolution, it won't look as good if you render it in a higher resolution, but I record in 720, so I'm going to render it in 720. And you choose where you want to save it to. Save it to the desktop. Call it, you know, Battlefield 3 clip, and hit save, and then it will render it. Takes a little bit, depending on how big or long the video is, how fast your computer is, and it is now rendered. And I can hit open. I always like to watch it to see what it looks like in full render. It's totally cool. Our transitions are awesome. And there you go. Hope this helps, guys. This is just the basics, but it should hopefully help you, get into Sony Vegas. And thanks for watching.